Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Capricorn, Sun, Moon or Ascendant, for the month of June 2023. I hope you're well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people. They really are awesome. I've got a lot of time for them, and we're setting up classes and all sorts of things as well. So if that's something that's of interest to you, please do avail yourself of that link. Right, Capricorn, let's get straight in and see what's going on with you. You can have three cards for Capricorn. Well, there's the first one. I can tell you from here it's reversed. I don't know what it is though. I can just see the back of the card. Let's have a look. We have the Ace of Cups in the reverse. I'm going to flip this around so that you can see. I'll light her out of the way. Tell me about current energy for Capricorn. Wow, these are coming out very strongly. We have the Seven of Cups. And what about current energy? No, what's coming towards Capricorn for June, please? Wow. We have the Star. Well, that's pretty awesome because the combination of these two cards here together feel very uncomfortable to me indeed. But we do have, in some way, the promise of healing, a resurgence of hope, if you will, which is really, really important. And to top it off, we have the Wheel of Fortune at the bottom of the deck. Now, whenever the Wheel of Fortune is in motion, I guess, if you want to put it like that, what we have is a sense of there being something kind of karmically important that we're going through at this point. You know, I see the Wheel of Fortune as being a card that indicates that there's something here on our spiritual syllabus that we need to learn. And I've described it at points as almost like the save point on a game. You know, you struggle through and, you know, you die a million times and you keep going back to the beginning and all that kind of thing. And then you pass the level and you hit that save point. And from there, it doesn't matter how much you fuck up the game after that. You'll always come back to this point. The lessons that you have learned, the ways in which you have grown will bring you back to this point. And hopefully, you know, the knowledge that you have, the self-awareness that you have will enable you to to progress at a higher level than was open to you prior to this point. Now, it does also talk about your fortunes improving, and for some reason I feel like I need to underline, this seems to be particularly important for Capricorn this month, that what is best for you might not necessarily feel like that at the point where it's happening. It's kind of towery almost in that way. It's got a feeling of the tower about it without the overt presence of the tower being here. What do we have underneath? The King of Cups. Yeah, well, we've got definitely this process of emotional maturation that is occurring as this, you know, whatever this lesson is that's unfolding. I don't really like the lesson thing. It's this pass and fail kind of aspect to it that I don't like. It's just like, here's the syllabus. Like, you're going to learn it. Whatever happens, you're going to learn it. It's a question of whether you learn it now or whether you learn it later, you know. But there's an opportunity for really quite significant levels of healing here for you in June, if you pay attention to the lessons and if you do not cling to what you believe is the right outcome for you, and instead in some ways allow the universe to take the wheel. Right? I know I know what that means for a Capricorn, right? I'm a Capricorn ascendant, so I feel like I can speak with some level of authority about this. That is not a comfortable state for a Capricorn to be in. We like to be in control. We are at points perhaps guilty of being control freaks. I can certainly hold my hand up and say that I've been guilty of that in the past, although I try and do it a little less nowadays. Let's get some clarifiers out and get some meat on these bones, and then we'll take it from there. Tell me about the Ace of Cups in reverse, please. Why is that here? Oh, well. Three of Swords and the Six of Swords in reverse. Interesting. What about this Seven of Cups? We have the Ace of Pentacles and we have the Chariot. And tell me about the Star, please. Why is the Star here for Capricorn? We have the Fool. That's incredible. Oh, I've just got goosebumps. Oh, they start my ankles and they roll right the way up my body. I have to just let them do it. Tell me about this Star card, please. Why is that here for Capricorn? Eight of Cups, right? I mean, the majority of the cards are on the table. Well, it's not actually the majority. Like we've kind of got a 50-50 going on here. We've got water, we've got water, we've got water, and we've got water. Four watery cards, right? Your emotions are definitely in play here at the moment. And remember that we saw that King of Cups underneath there too. You know, no situation that is going to have you emotionally maturing isn't going to involve your emotions in the mix there somewhere. But we also have a lot of swords. We have a lot of air. So we've got the Three of Swords, the Six of Swords, the Aquarius card, the Star card, which is Aquarius. You know, and then we have Aquarius again with the King of Swords. Now, if you've been keeping any kind of eye on the astrology, you'll know that currently Pluto is sitting at, I believe it's sitting at 0 degrees of Aquarius, right? It's forming that grand fixed cross in the sky, fixed grand cross. I'm not sure which way around you're supposed to say it. And Pluto is concerned with helping us find our power, right? It talks about transformation, it talks about endings, and I think inherent within an ending is a beginning, right? There's always that possibility, and I feel like the Fool actually encapsulates that beautifully. Like the Fool is everything and nothing. It is pure potential, so it sits in those two states at once. But because we've got this double Aquarius energy at play here, I think the focus is very much on transformation. And we've got a transformation of I think not necessarily the decisions that you make, but the way in which you are choosing to make decisions moving forwards, allowing your emotions to have an input into them. But we're not talking about kind of scrappy, panicked emotions, which I feel like is possible you've been experiencing back here. It's something much more considered, it's something much more thoughtful, it's something much more peaceful, actually, Capricorn. And I think from the way that the cards are starting to show themselves here, a bit of peace would go a long way with you. But there has to be some sort of balance between the two. You know, the King of Cups wants us to get our emotions in order so that we understand that we rule our emotions and not the other way around. We're also, you know, being asked to understand that we are not our emotions. Emotions are transitory, emotions are fleeting, and as such they should never really be in charge of the ship. But equally, the King of Swords, who is making decisions based on rationality and logic alone, obviously a bit of justice and a bit of fairness too, is saying that actually the best decision comes when we're neither ruled purely by logic, when we allow some emotional stuff to come in, but also when we are in control enough of our emotions that we can consider them and we can decide whether in that moment what we're actually feeling is just, I guess. Because all emotions are valid. I do truly believe that. All emotions are valid. But whether they are true, whether they have a basis in truth, is a different matter altogether. And perhaps what we've got going on here with this, you know, these Aquarian cards coming up with the King of Cups, which is Scorpio, is a contemplation of whether the emotions that we feel are just. Are they justified? Are they fair? And that could be quite a difficult position to find ourselves in, which would explain beautifully why the Wheel of Fortune is making such a prominent appearance here. So let's start off with your recent past over here, you know, to clarify recent past could mean this morning, like literally this morning when you got out of bed, or it could be, the last 6 weeks. You have to take it as it resonates to you, because it'd be slightly different for everyone. But this Ace of Cups in reverse is troublesome. It is problematic. It's not what we want to see. We don't ever want to see an ace in reverse anyway, because it speaks of delays, it speaks of blockages. But it has a specifically troublesome aspect when it's the Ace of Cups. Because in order for the Ace of Cups to do its job, which is to hold emotion, it has to, by definition, be in the upright. Now, you can use a sword when it's dangling down like that and stab things in the floor, right? A wand can be, you can twat somebody's ankles with it. It doesn't have to be pointed up. A pentacle is a pentacle, whichever way you spin it around, right? So whether it's upside down or in the reverse, we're only ever really talking about a delay in something. We're not talking about the fact that you cannot have that thing. We're just saying, well, it's a little bit delayed. That's it. With the Ace of Cups, the whole point of it is destroyed if it is inverted. And that's what we've got going on here. Like, it cannot, by definition, hold emotion when it is in this position. And that is something that I find uncomfortable to contemplate. Because the Ace of Cups in the upright, it speaks to the new. Right? When we're talking about this, we're talking about new. So often people will interpret it as new love. There's somebody coming in for you, Capricorn. That's wonderful. Sometimes with additional cards, it can indicate the birth of a child. Right? We've got literally a new life coming into the world. But the definition that seems to resonate with me most often is the relationship that we have with ourselves. Right? When the cup is upright, when we've got a good relationship with ourselves, whether we've newly discovered that or whether that's something that's been going on for a long time, it represents the pure potential of the joy that we can experience, the emotional fulfillment that we can experience that is self-generating. We're not looking to other people to validate us. We're not looking to other people to love us so that we feel in some way lovable. We're not even looking to any of the ways in which people can often define themselves to give themselves a sense of worth. Like, for example, and I hope I'm not being too stereotypical here, but again, Capricorn ascendant, defining ourselves through our jobs, defining ourselves through our work, defining ourselves through the status and perhaps even the financial value that position affords us. It's something that sits far beyond that, right? Far more internal than that. It speaks to self-worth. It speaks to our ability to be able to be forgiving and compassionate with ourselves. And when that card is reversed, none of those things are actually in play. It's saying, we're trying to pull the water in, but it's literally just splurting out everywhere. It cannot hold anything. And thus the relationship that we have with ourselves is so fucking compromised that it cannot help but continually lead to this, which is the Three of Swords. I think it's the one card in the tarot that most people don't need to have explained to them. You get any muggle off the street and you go, what do you think this card means? And people are going to go, oh, that looks really, really painful. Like that. Because it's that feeling of being sliced through the heart, right? And the thing that slices through the heart is, I think, truth. Well, it's interesting to me that the Three of Swords should be a swords card. It should be one that is, inherently kind of connected to rationality and reason and logic and all of those things. Because it's an emotional position that we find ourselves in when our hearts are broken. The pain that we feel when we find out something that absolutely crushes us emotionally isn't up here. It's in here. So why then is it a swords card? And I think it's because it speaks to truth. It speaks to the moment that new information comes in and we clearly perceive the consequences of that. It's almost like it changes our worldview instantly in a second. And I think most people have had some sort of experience of the feeling of that when it happens. The funny thing about it is that, you know, whatever it is could have happened a long time ago, but it's at the point where the information, where the head meets heart, that the heartbreak occurs. You know, I'm sure we've all had situations where we found out that a partner has cheated on us. You can feel your heart break right then and there. To be told about the death of a loved one happens right there. You know, I remember hearing about a family member committing suicide a few years ago. I only found out about it like a week later or so, because I don't have a lot of contact with my family generally. I absolutely broke my fucking heart. She'd been dead a week. The pain that she'd been in for a great deal fucking longer. And if anything, actually the suicide broke my heart less than the feeling, the empathy that I felt for how things must have been for her to get to a point where that seemed like the best solution. It seemed like actually the only choice. Time. You know, the temporal effects of this can get distorted, but it's the point at which the information meets the heart. That's where the Three of Swords exists. Now, we've got a chicken and an egg kind of situation here, Capricorn, because the question of the relationship with yourself being either caused by heartbreak that you have experienced, or by the heartbreak that you've experienced is causing you to shut down. Is that the same thing? I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember exactly what I said. But you see what I mean? Did one cause the other? Or was it the other way around? Or has it been a constant cycle in your life? I want you to really sit with this as an idea, because it seems to me that something's come back around. It suggests to me that this is an old heartbreak. It's an old wound that somehow has been refreshed in your heart. Maybe you've done quite a good job of pushing it away. Maybe you don't think about it on the day-to-day, but something has happened in the recent past that has caused all of this to resurface. It's caused you to have to go back to the choppy waters. You know, when the Six of Swords is in the upright, and just pay attention to this here, we've got these choppy waters in the corner of the card, and we've got this boat traversing to the calmer waters over here, right, where things are emotionally a little bit more peaceful than they have been up until this point. When it shows up in the reverse, we are returning to that emotionally choppy water. We're returning to pain. And we're having to confront ourselves in a way that feels very uncomfortable. Now, in the best tradition of the Wheel of Fortune, like what we've got, you know, what goes around comes around and all that kind of shizzle, what we've got is a situation where we're coming back to something, and it may not be the same situation, but it may be triggering the same feelings. It may be triggering the same pain. It may be triggering that same feeling in your heart that you've tried so hard to avoid up until this point. And it's planted it so squarely in front of you that there is no escape here. None. It's like we have to face this down now. You know, the astrology of May has been absolutely extraordinary. You know, I actually, to be fair, it kind of goes back to April, right? We had that solar eclipse in April. It was about April the 20th or something like that, right? Depending on where you were in the world. Then we had that lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which happened around about the 5th of May. And then Mercury was in retrograde, which was kind of, I don't know about you, but I found that quite a spicy retrograde, as retrogrades go. And now we find ourselves under the influence of this fixed grand cross, which is pulling us in lots of different directions. Please do feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what we have is Mars in Leo on one side, and we have Pluto in Aquarius at the other, right? And we're pulling in different directions that way. But we also have the North and the South nodes at play, right? And they're pulling in different directions too. There's this point of tension that exists in the middle. And then right off to the side, we've got Jupiter, the planet of expansion, sitting in Taurus, which is squaring Pluto as well. It's blowing everything up. It's making everything feel bigger. It's making everything feel much more intense. And it's not doing it to punish you. And this is the really important thing to recognize about this. This situation is happening for you, not to you. Because what it's doing is showing you frankly where you are too thin, right? Where it's like paper, wet paper, and it just needs a little poke, and then suddenly everything's kind of falling apart. And not to disempower you, but rather the reverse, to show you where energy needs to be applied to make you stronger here. You know, I'm going to talk about this card here. It's very visceral, it's very obvious what it means. You know, I like it when it turns inverted, because I feel like gravity does its work there. Maybe it's the passing of time or something like that, right? We're told that time heals all wounds. I'm not entirely sure that that's true, actually. But gravity can help these swords fall out, and from there, then it is possible for the scar tissue to start doing its work. You can't heal around steel. It's not possible. So these swords have got to be gone, and then the scar tissue can start knitting everything back together. And scar tissue is stronger than normal tissue. It's more resilient. It can take a bit more of a beating before it, punctures, allows itself to be punctured again. It's not pretty, but it is highly effective. It is very functional. And as a Capricorn ascendant, I have to say, I kind of respect it for that. But as we move into your current energy, what we have is absolute confusion. What we have is a character who is absolutely consumed by his emotions. And the question of, again, as I said before, yes, your feelings are all valid, but are they true? I feel is coming into kind of sharp focus here for you. For some of you, it might be, are you really acting from a place of the best intentions? Or is there something else going on here? Is there a desire for vengeance? Is there actually so much fucking pain that you can't deal with it, that you feel like lashing out? Or is there something much more forlorn about the energy as you're experiencing it at the moment, right? Does it feel kind of suffocating? This makes it all sound very, very negative, but I mean, what we've got here is a ton of time. And take this as a resonance to you, because I mean, it could be fucking decades, but for some of you it could be 5 or 6 years, right? And everything in between, of emotional repression. And what seems to me is whatever's triggered off the situation that you are in now, it's kind of been like the bursting of a dam, right? It started with a little trickle and you kind of stuck your finger in it, like, I don't want to deal with that, thank you very much. And then another one appears somewhere and you stick your finger in that too. And then another one turns up and you're like, oh, holy shit, like this is turning into a game of Twister, and now I'm going to have to contort myself, get my toe in that hole. And then the crack started. And the crack started about 10 feet down from where you are. And you're like, oh shit, wait, well, it's a crack. I can't plug it with anything. Maybe it'll just be fine. Maybe it just had to, give a little bit. And it feels like you had approximately 10 seconds to kind of make that assessment of the situation before the whole fucking dam just burst. And then here you are. You're floating in the water. And you're like, fuck. I don't even know if I'm facing the right way up. Everything is chaotic. There are no anchor points in this kind of situation. I feel like sometimes the rest of the zodiac can be a little bit sniffy about water signs. They consider them to be a little less powerful, a little less efficient, a little less organised, a little less fucking powerful, full stop, really. Because they're so consumed by their emotions, right? That would be a very King of Swords position to take. But when we experience a personal bursting of the dam, and we recognise what water signs are dealing with on the daily, I don't know about you, but I can't help but have that kind of creeping respect for the way that they live their lives. Because there've been a number of times where my personal dam has broken. Well, you know, in one instance I shut down for 18 months. I literally just stared at a fucking wall. And it didn't matter how organised I tried to be, I couldn't, because my emotions were just like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that either. Oh, did you think you were going to do that? You're not going to do that. You know, there's something that is pointing you towards the need to begin the process of personal work here, Capricorn. And I do feel like the personal work's been kind of tapping on your door for a little while, and maybe as you've acquiesced and you've done a little bit and you felt a little bit better, and that was good, but the attention has always been drawn elsewhere. It keeps getting pulled, and it's like, no, actually now there is no possibility of getting distracted, because you are fully in a sink or swim moment with your own emotions. You know, regardless of what might be going on outside of you, and there probably is quite a number of chaotic things that are going on inside of you. But in order for you to ever have a hope of reaching dry land again, it's time to grow the tail on the back of the goat. Right? It's time to learn to navigate these waters. And we've got the Eight of Pentacles here, which does talk about commitment, but it talks about mastery. It talks about really applying yourself to something and really, getting yourself to a place where you are not only learning, but you're getting to a point where you can teach other people too. I'm not suggesting that you go and teach emotional wellness or anything like that, but I'm talking about by way of the way that you show up in the world, the way that you interact with other people, the way that you deal with other people, you know, the example that you set by virtue of your existence. And it all revolves around the Chariot. Now, I actually want to pull an extra couple of cards for this, because I feel like there's a dual-fold message in the presence of the Chariot here. And the first and foremost is the path that you have been dedicated to up until this point, right? The determination, the focus, the blinkers on the eyes that have been taking you in that direction, right? This is why you're so fucking good at this, Capricorn. This is why you smash through any fucking goals that you set for yourself. Because you are self-disciplined. Because you've got that ability to actually put the blinkers on yourself and go that way. And maybe what seems to be coming in here is the idea that maybe this path, whilst it has had some benefits, has potentially cost you more in the long run. So the question of whether the goal that you've actually set for yourself is the right one. Walking dog. That's Morrigan, by the way. And she's gone again. Seems to be... She's thinking about fucking off into the farmer's field, and if she does that, that's the next 2 hours gone looking for her. I need to pause the video a second, hang on. I'm back, sorry about that. Just didn't want the rest of my day to be dominated by looking for a canine Celtic goddess of death, who probably made it to Bedlington or something like that. Anyway, what was I saying? Ah, yes. The path that you have chosen for yourself and the ultimate destination that you intended to reach. Whether that has been the right one for you, or whether it is now that there is new information that, like I said, is requiring your attention so fucking hard that it's time to reassess. But the other meaning of the Chariot is very much concerned with knowledge of the self. You know, the entirety of the Chariot card speaks to self-knowledge, and just about every word that you can tack self onto the front of as a prefix would be represented by the Chariot card. So we have self-discipline, we have self-motivation, we have self-knowledge, we have self-worth, we have just the knowing of thyself altogether. Because for me, this Chariot card actually speaks to shadow work, right? Or the accomplishment, I suppose, of shadow work. Because we have these polarities, We have these aspects of self that are depicted here at the front of the chariot, these two sphinxes. We've got a light one and a dark one, and we have then within that, the idea of polarities, the idea of extremes of us. So, the shadow versus the light, the good versus the bad, the night versus the day, all of these things. And what the Chariot card does is it brings it into alignment. The charioteer is the point of alignment between these three, and he has to hold them in balance in order that he can go in a straight line. Because if either of these are stronger or not as well, reined up as the other one, it's going to go in whatever direction it pleases, and the other two of you have no fucking choice but to follow, and it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be destructive. It's going to be chaotic. The chariot's going to flip over, and this thing's probably going to break its fucking leg, and you land it on your head, and you're like, what the fuck happened? And what the fuck happened? This is why I just paused there, was because I heard this. It's like, that was it. What the fuck happened? Is where you are right now. And it feels to me like you don't really understand what it is that you need to do for the best. It's like it's like you can't come up with an answer because you don't even know what the fucking question is at this point. And that's a really difficult place to be. Like, how could you possibly make the right move? How can you possibly do the right thing when you don't even really understand the rules of the game, Capricorn? One of the things that helps you, alongside your determination and your self-discipline and all of those things, one of the things that has always helped you catapult yourself through your own goals is your innate understanding of the rules of the game. But they are changing. And now, whether you like it or not, in order to participate at the same level as you have done up until this point, the King of Cups needs to be featuring somewhere. Right? That emotional maturity needs to be focusing somewhere. It is now not sufficient to be rational and logical and perhaps being absolutely only information driven. The emotional stuff's coming in, and whether it's by way of your repression, so you've repressed it for long enough and now it's just kind of like bursting through like from the dam, or whether it is other people's emotions, because everybody is not you. If nothing else, everybody is not you, and everybody has a different way of dealing with things, and there are people who are considerably more emotional than you are, that it seems to me are quite important to you. No, don't get me wrong, there are people, certainly, probably signs, there are a lot more rational and logical, maybe even detached and cold than you are. In your shadowy version, that's sometimes how you can come across. But it feels like it's crunch time. And the funny thing is, I feel like you've reached this crunch time a number of times this year, and somehow you've managed to just avoid it. Because if you'd actually done it then, when it first came up in the first crunch or the second crunch or whatever, this wouldn't be here like this. It suggests to me that you found a way to bypass it, and then you were like, okay, disaster avoided. Right? That could have been a catastrophe, but I swerved it and it was okay. And it's like it's just coming back to your door over and over again, and it requires dealing with. Now, whether this is a specific situation that is sitting in front of you, or whether this is just a succession of little situations that are all triggering you in exactly the same way each time, and possibly harder and harder each time, the only solution is to get your beasts in line, is to achieve that kind of equilibrium that we're talking about. I mean, the equilibrium twixt heart and head is extremely significant here. And notice that the Wheel of Fortune, here's the point of learning for you, is not sitting over the King of Swords. It's sitting over the King of Cups. Here's where your lesson is. You don't actually need to be more of this. You need to be more of that. And you have the capacity to be so. I mention it almost every single reading. Like, you know, the symbol for Capricorn is the sea goat. And you see memes all over Instagram all the time, right? With goats on, and you know, the goat sat up on a peak somewhere by itself, and it says, you know, I actually really laughed at this because I felt it pretty strongly. Sure, I just saw another dog. Somewhere out in the world, the Capricorn is living its best life, and I'm like, yeah, truth. I feel that. I resonate with that. But it's not a goat. It doesn't live up a mountain full time, right? You're a sea goat. You're supposed to be able to go up the mountain, but also, you know, jump from the top of the mountain straight into the sea and be adaptable enough to be able to do both. There's a whole range of experience that you are specifically designed to navigate that it seems to me that you have deprived yourself of. And I don't think it can continue any longer because the Star and the Fool and the Eight of Cups. It's a really interesting combination, but the Star for me is the return of hope. Like I said when the card first came out on the table, right? It is in some way a change, I think. Because is Aquarius not? I have a sudden feeling that I've been banging on about Aquarius being ruled by Pluto. I don't know. ADHD brain, sorry. It slides around all over the place, and every now and again, like, I get a bubble that just pops and it says, you said something really wrong. And I'm like, did I actually say that? I actually don't know. Anyway, right, Scorpio, Pluto, right? Aquarius. Ah, no, that's where it is, because Pluto is in Aquarius, right? Scorpio, also Pluto. But Aquarius rules Uranus. And it's those sudden, shocking changes of events. It's almost like the Deus Ex Machina. The Star is about profound healing. Notice here how this woman's absolutely, you know, like partially submerged herself in the water. But when we take it in context of the card that came before, what we've got is somebody who is pulling themselves out of a situation that they did not think at this point they had the opportunity to get out of, right? Land has been found. The ability to be able to stand upright is here. But she's still partially submerged in the water. Which means she hasn't just hauled herself out of here and gone, well, fuck that, I'm not going near a water ever again. It's like she's found a place, she's found it within herself to be able to occupy a place where she can be in contact with the earth, in contact with the material, but also allow herself to feel the water through at least half of her, the tail half, if you will. There it is. And we've got the Fool. June is a month of breaking free for you. And it's so welcome because the tension here is palpable. It's really uncomfortable. It's a breakthrough. Possibly it's a breakthrough through connection, because that's one of the ways that I see the Star card really speaking to us. It's about vulnerability, it's about openness, it's about a willingness to heal, but it's also about a state of connection achieved with other people. And it's firmly rooted in the emotional. But we also have the Fool. We're talking about liberation and release. We're talking about the ability of you to be able to actually start a new cycle that is governed much more like this than this. And that can be intimidating. It can be a little bit overwhelming. But honestly, I swear to God, in June, Capricorn, you feel to me like you are more than ready for this. The trust seems to be returning. Oh, the question for you would be, where did the trust go, and why did the trust go, and was it a reasonable thing that the trust went? You know, you need to be thinking about all of these things in your own time, for sure. But we've got the Eight of Cups. And just as it looked like here to me that we went from being completely, well, almost completely submerged in water with no anchor points whatsoever, we get to a place where we can kind of stand up and go, actually, I'm touching terra firma again, and this feels pretty good. But I'm still in contact with the water. The Eight of Cups is that internal ability to be able to actually walk away from something emotionally. You know, whatever this situation has been here that's had you returning, and like I said, I do feel like you've been returning a few times this year. It's just been like you got close and you're like, fuck that, I'm getting out of the way of it and whatnot. Instead of being in a position where you're kind of constantly sucked back to this previous situation and all of the pain that was associated with it, it seems to me like there is a real solution that is actually starting to show up here for you. It's one that's freeing you and it's liberating you, but it's also a way in which you are freeing and liberating yourself. You're kind of allowing it to happen rather than trying to control the situation. The Fool controls nothing. The Fool is aware he's a fool and he has no business controlling anything at all. Can barely control himself. He's about to topple off a huge cliff here, you know. But he's moving with trust. He's the perfect expression of the potential of the life that we could lead, for good or for ill. It's the importance of the zero state. And it represents the ability to wipe the slate clean and start again. As we see this man doing here. And what's this man doing? Well, if you look at these, you know, we've got these 5 cups across the bottom and we've got these 3 at the top. There's a gap here. Like our eye is deliberately drawn to the fact that there is a cup missing. It's the Ace of Cups. You start on a process of self-work and you put that ace in there. Suddenly you have 9 cups. You have the ability to be happy where the ability the ability did not exist prior to that. You know, the ability to be emotionally fulfilled where nothing was really filling that cup because the cup was upside down. This is an incredibly powerful month for you, Capricorn. But I think it's going to take some true focus from you to make it happen. It's interesting. I think I've said to just about every sign that I've read for this month, and I think I'm on I'm halfway through now, that there seems to be a message coming through for everyone, which is this month is about scrutinizing everything. We're not looking for loopholes. We're not looking for ways to trip other people up. I mean, we're examining ourselves thoroughly. We're examining all the information that's coming in. We're taking ourselves off autopilot. We will not allow ourselves to just drift. We have to be focused. And we're seeing that here with you. You've got to be focused. You've got to be determined. You've got to actually wish for, that's a wish, for healing. You've got to be open to the possibility that healing is possible for you. I think healing is possible for everyone. For some people it takes a little more work than others. But truly, if I could show you the state that I was in 5 years ago, you would not recognise me. And 5 years ago I did not believe that I was capable of healing. Did not believe I was capable of happiness. I didn't believe that I was capable of being in a state where this was something that I actually recognised. It was completely absent from my internal discourse. I was just like, it's a bit fucking stupid, that. A bit self-indulgent. Not very efficient, not very practical. The Eight of Cups represents an opportunity to leave behind this, but leave it behind properly, so that you are not dragged back to it to deal with it again. And that seems to me to be a very fucking precious thing, indeed a gift, if you will, for this month. So I'm going to leave it here for now. I'm going to go over to Vimeo and I'm going to watch I'm not going to watch the extended, I'm going to record it. And we're going to get into May specifically. I'd like to get a few more specific things than just the really good stuff that appears here, and see if we can't help you navigate toward that, right? So if you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. It's the first link in the description box, or you can come over to Circle and join up there. It's entirely up to you. But if neither of those suits, if that's not really something that you're interested in, I do feel like it's peaking for you, right? End of May, beginning of June, all this stuff is starting to peak, and then it's breakthrough time. And I think, truly, if I was to give you one piece of advice, it would be to be scrupulously honest, not only with other people, but with yourself. It would be to be open, to be vulnerable, to do all of the things that make you feel desperately fucking uncomfortable. Because I think that you have more support and more possibilities for assistance than you realise. And you just have to open yourselves up to them. You have to allow yourself to receive them. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.